Hi everybody, this is Dr. Steve G. Jones. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, self-made millionaire, and founder of Total Money Magnetism. Today, I'd like to walk you through the 5 most effective ways that will help you manage your money correctly and, in effect, generate more wealth for you in the long run. By the way, feel free to share your comments below, especially if you've got some money management tips of your own to share. I'd love to hear from you. Now, most folks underestimate the importance of keeping their financial life under control. They don't really understand the profound effect it would have on them if they knew the basics of saving, spending, and investing. In fact, an article from Time magazine a few years ago points out that more than half of the pre-retirees in the US haven't saved at all for retirement. So that means they're facing a bleak future once they stop working. And what I'm seeing is that too many people are caught up in bad financial habits that they're not even aware of, which is really undermining the amount of wealth they could generate through their lifetime. A lot of these false financial beliefs usually stem from their childhood because they learn the wrong assumptions about money, and it resonates with them into adulthood. Plus, financial literacy isn't really something a lot of schools nowadays teach to students, so that definitely compounds the challenge. I should know, because not too long ago I was swimming in tons of credit card debt. I used to have poor financial habits myself until I found a way out of it, and I'll share that with you later. Okay, so right now I'm going to help you develop the skills that you need to stay on top of your money better and how to grow it. All right, let's jump into number 1. Number 1, live within your means. I'm starting with the most obvious one for the sole reason that most people take it for granted. Let's go with a simple example. Someone earning, say, like $40,000 yearly is headed for disaster if they spent something like $50,000 a year. They could even spend $41,000 a year and still be in trouble. The reason is that spending beyond what you earn really creates a ripple effect on your financial life that will impact you negatively for a long time to come. For one thing, you won't have anything saved up for a surprise illness, a significant accident, or something unexpected like an expense that you're not ready for. And so keeping your spending in check while you're working on raising your income is crucial. It's practically putting money in the bank by just finding some area where you can cut back a bit. The idea is to give yourself a buffer and free up that money to invest in other things, which I'll also be talking about in a bit. In the meantime, let's move on to number 2. Number 2 is get your budget sorted out. Okay, now this next tip is all about keeping track of where your money is going every month. Too many people find themselves scratching their heads wondering, where did it all go? Barely a week after payday. So the logical solution is to find out precisely how you're spending your money so you know where the leaks are. And let me tell you, the best time to get started is yesterday. I'm not even talking about a fancy balance sheet that you have to do on some software or app. Making a basic budget that covers the essentials is more than enough to get you started. The goal is to get into the habit of sorting out the different types of expenses you typically get every month so you don't get overwhelmed by it. Okay, it's kind of scary for some folks to do this because they'd rather keep their reality, the reality of their expenses, out of sight and out of mind, but you can only bury your head in the sand for so long, and sooner or later you'll need to wake up and smell the budget. So grab a pencil, a calculator, and some paper and get to work. First off, find out exactly how much you take home every month. Compute the amount of time you put in, like maybe 40, 60, or 80 hours a week. Once you've figured out your income, list down everything you need to pay for in a month, like rent or food, transportation, power, internet. You'll probably have a combination of physical receipts and an online banking statement, so make sure you're tracking everything correctly. From here, you'll figure out if you're making more than you're spending or vice versa. Chances are there are some things that you can cut back on, so you'll need to pinpoint those areas and do some trimming. Now, aside from the recurring expenses that we already tackled, which is about half of your total income, here are some places worth considering. Emergency funds. This is for both immediate and long-term purposes like accidents, illnesses, along with house and car repairs. Aside from that, you might want to include money saved up for buying appliances or other purchases that fall on the expensive side. This category would make up about 1/10 of your income. Next is money you put down for making investments that will help you earn money in the long run. This would probably be anywhere between 10 and 15% of your income. Lastly, you'll want to set aside something like 20 to 30% for eating out, entertainment, or basically any form of leisure activity. Your goal for the long term is to have enough saved for this area after you're done spending on the other stuff in your budget. So the main focus here really is to save up as much as possible so you get to splurge a little bit where it counts. I know that not everyone can follow these budget proportions to a T, but that shouldn't stop you from scraping together whatever you can while you're attempting to increase your income. Number 3, play the long game. When it comes to living an abundant life, you need to think 20 or even 30 steps ahead. Aside from saving up for when you retire, you'll also have to figure out how you're going to handle those recurring expenses and payments. Do you know how to pay off that car in the next 5 years? Or how about your new computer that's on a 12-month payment plan? This is why your budget has to allow for these things, on top of financial emergencies that might come knocking when you least expect them. So, you should always be looking to the future and make sure that you're planting the seeds today that you're going to reap tomorrow. I know that sounds challenging if you feel you've got so little to go by right now, but sound financial habits have to start somewhere, don't they? It's better to start saving and investing as soon as you can, no matter what. The effect of these habits will add up in ways you're not able to see yet. And yes, retiring comfortably should also be one of your life goals, which means you have to invest for that purpose starting today. So, that brings us to the next point. Number 4, invest like you mean it. Okay, so tip number 4 is the art of investing wisely. What you need to do as early as possible is to keep building up your savings and funnel a healthy amount of that into investments that can give you a good return over the years. Yes, it's going to take anywhere between several years and even a decade to build something good out of your investments. However, this is money that will keep growing and working for you while you sleep. And during that time, you'll be doing other things to improve your financial life on other fronts, so that time will fly by more quickly than you think. So it's going to be challenging in the beginning. You'll need to build up your finances in this area, especially if your income isn't that high yet. But investments have a way of growing exponentially, especially if you develop the habit of setting aside a certain amount for investments. This is why it's critical that you always think about reevaluating your investments whenever your income does increase for some reason, like getting a new job or getting a raise at your current one. You might be thinking of spending it on the fun stuff like the latest gadget or a nice vacation or a flashy car. There's nothing wrong with that, but you can think of that extra money as the perfect opportunity to improve the long-term health of your savings. People like Warren Buffett are masters at this. He's worth about $84 billion, and he certainly knows how to play the long game. His insights on investing have always stuck with me, and here's a couple that I'd like to share with you real quick. Invest in assets that perform for you. Warren Buffett says that investing in assets like cash and gold don't really have as much return over the years as stocks do. In fact, he says that all the gold in the world is only worth 1/3 of the stocks in the United States. Compared to stocks and other assets like farmland, gold really doesn't do much for you aside from looking pretty. So investing is really about choosing the assets that will perform for you in the long run. And that brings us to another important aspect of investing, according to Warren Buffett, which is do your homework first. Before investing in stocks, one of the things Warren does is read their annual report and figure out if it's a good company. He thinks about the company's type of business, its future, and what it's worth in the market. Then, Warren compares what he thinks it's worth against the actual price before making a decision. Now, obviously, it takes real-life experience and research to figure out that part, but let that be your guiding principle when you start making low-risk investments and work your way up the investing game. Number 5. Know where to put your stash. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do is open up an account for your disposable income and another one for savings, which can either be long-term or short-term. Set up an account with an institution of your choice, and if you have time, go down to your preferred bank, or you can open one on their website. Choose a bank that charges reasonable fees for services like ATM debit card, online banking, and a smartphone app to keep track of everything. Some institutions have a minimum balance requirement and charge you every month for their services, so do a little homework and compare a few banks in your area. See which one offers the best rates and see if they have online services, which could mean lower fees. But don't sweat it if you're not 100% sure which bank is best for you. You always have the option to switch banks anyway. So use one for a few months, see what happens. Look, everyone who needs to use money in some way has to keep their finances well managed. Even folks who are outrageously wealthy understand that if they want to stay that way, they'll need to run a tight ship. And so should you. I read a study on lottery winners in Europe, and it turns out that those guys are spending their money wisely. Stockholm University and New York University did some research on this and found that a good number of people who hit it big actually used their money to invest in financial assets and spent their money reasonably. It looks like times are changing and they're not burning through their cash to buy mansions or yachts like you would think they would. All right, so that does it for this video. But before I go, let's recap how to handle your money. Number 1, live within your means. Number 2, get your budget sorted out. Number 3, play the long game. Number 4, invest like you mean it. And number 5, know where to put your stash. Now, like I said earlier, I was buried under a mountain of credit card debt. I could barely afford to keep the lights on, let alone invest a single solitary cent into any sort of financial asset, but I found a way to think my way out of my situation and generate the cash I needed to kickstart my healthy financial future. Then after that, I started investing and saving up like I talked about just now. That way, I never needed to decide again between having dinner or having enough gas in the car for the next day. Yes, it was that bad. So I'm going to give you my free ebook called The Skill of Money Magnetism. 6 steps to train your brain to think like a millionaire, which you can download right now by going to www.totalmoneymagnetism.com/skill. This is going to help you undo the biggest mental blocks to creating massive wealth and to get on your path to financial freedom. So that's www.totalmoneymagnetism.com/skill. Check it out right now and start learning my secrets today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.